Today we're working on the 82 F-150. It has its front clip off because we're putting a motor in it. The motor that's in it has a bad cam bearing. It's a 351 Windsor. We're going to put a 302 back in it. I've had it under this tarp for about a year. Right now I'm taking the torque converter nuts off, and to make it easier to spin the motor over, I'm going to take the plugs out. Alright, now it'll be pretty easy to turn it over with the flywheel so I can get to the torque converter nuts. Got it spun around where I can see the nut. One down. And now I try not to lose them. Now onto bell housing bolts. It was worth it pulling the front clip. Figure I'll get the easy ones first. Stay tuned. Part 2, engine pull. Bell housing bolts. I'm going to use my impact where I can. Small block forward, so it's a 5/8. I'm not going to take them all out until I get this transmission blocked up. This truck is 4-wheel drive, is why I'm not pulling the engine and transmission all in one piece. I'm not going to deal with the transfer case. I can't get everything on video until I get a better camera. Another one down. Winning. About time we get these motor mounts loose. I had to use my foot to get that to break loose. More nuts and bolts I can't lose. This side's even better with the front drive shaft in the way. And cheater pipe for the win. That thing was not coming off of there. I think that's enough rolling around in the dirt for a day. It's about time to bring in the engine hoist. Subscribe for more Fords. Part 3 of pulling the motor out of the F-150. Got the hoist out here. Last video I took out all of the bell housing bolts other than 2. I had to block it up to get the hoist underneath the front axle. And underneath we got the transmission blocked up, ready to go. Now it's time to hook up the hoist. We got the chain hooked up. Well, let's put some pressure on it. Once I get it high enough to clear the motor mount bolts, I'll adjust the jack on the transmission. Alright, we're free now. Now that the weight of the transmission is supported, it's time for the last 2 bell housing bolts. And the last one. Looks like we're winning. Add these to the bolt collection. Now the motor and transmission should separate. Alright, it's loose, y'all. And I forgot one bolt on the flex plate. With a lot of persuasion and a pry bar, here we are. Alright, until next time. Part 4 of the F-150. I got the old motor off the hoist and sitting down on the ground so I can get the accessories off of it that I need. So this 302 is an EFI motor, which means it's got a reverse flow water pump. I'm going to be using the old water pump. And of course, I'm going to put a carburetor on it. Got an old cast iron one I'm going to clean up and put on there. Alright, got the engine hoist hooked up. Let's get this one in the air. So one thing I noticed right away is this flywheel is stamped for an AOD. I don't think it's going to be compatible with my C6. I'm also going to have to hunt down a dipstick, the style that goes in the side of the block. Use these 2 sheets of plywood to wheel it over to the truck. Got it wheeled over there. On the new motor, a lot has to go. I'll be running the water pump and timing cover off the old engine because I want to run my manual pump. Of course, this one had an electric fuel pump with the EFI. Different distributor. I'll also be running V-belt, so this pulley has to go. Until next time. Working on the F-150 today. I'm going to start by taking the motor mounts off the old one and putting them on the new motor. Pretty good shape. Now on to the new one. This one needs a good cleaning, but it's in good shape too. Alright. Alright. Got the hoist hooked up. We're going to get it in there out of the weather. Almost there. Getting close. Got 3 of the bell housing bolts started, and the torque converter bolts are lined up in the flywheel. And the motor mounts are ready to set in. And it's sitting in there. Got 1 more bell housing bolt to tighten down. Torque converter's lined up with the flex plate, so all I gotta do is put those nuts on there, and job well done for today. Till next time. Working on the 302 and the F-150. I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of the stock valve covers. I have some chrome ones I want to put on. Nice and clean in there. The cork gasket came out in one piece. That's rare. It's supposed to be around 100,000 miles on this motor, and it's pretty clean. Not too bad. This side does seem to have more carbon than the other, which is kind of odd, but and on the old motor, I have a set of the reusable Felpro gaskets. They're well worth the money. This one got a little bit of rust, but it'll clean up pretty good. All right. Looks pretty good. And tomorrow I'll be painting the intake. Till next time. All right, it's finally time to clean the 302 intake. We're gonna paint it. I'm gonna start by taking this water neck off and taking the old thermostat out. Tool room's getting crowded. Guess it's not a bad thing though. Ew, worked, but probably not. Well, that's one way to block off a vacuum tree. I'll be using vacuum caps. Now here's the fun part, sanding it. I like these foam sanding pads to get into the hard to reach crevices. I do have a flat wheel for the flats, but there's not a whole lot. And now to let it dry. I'm impatient. Alright, working on the 81 again. A little bit of recap. I just got done changing the motor in this truck. Previous motor had a bad cam bearing. We have a 302 sitting in here now. We'll go ahead and tackle getting this old water pump off of here. This one is new enough to be reverse flow, and I'm wanting it to be standard flow because I'm running a V-belt, so I'm taking this one off of here. Well, maybe that's a good sign. The first one wasn't all froze up in there. Got one broke off in there. The one that goes in the water jacket's always the worst. I almost forgot this one. The deep well sets up the hill and I'm too stubborn to go get it. I'll have to work on getting this bolt out of there. Alright, here's my old one, which actually isn't that old. It just don't look good. And it's pumped for 2 years. This one gonna be easy. Should have brought my impact gun. Well, I understand the timing covers are the same other than the spot for the mechanical pump. Probably just gonna run a cheap electric one. Though I am a fan of technology. Ain't nothing wrong with a good mechanical pump. Save me from having to do timing cover gaskets. Well, that wasn't easy. Permatex a little bit. Bolt that broke, I still have to get it out of there. I'm out of Permatex. Bought it in a while, so I'm just gonna set this on there for now. Cover up my parts motor. Leave your wrenches in the yard. I just can't help myself. To take this crank trigger off, we won't be using any electronics on this motor. Getting an HEI distributor, that'll be one wire, simple to run. Video of me painting the intake manifold that we're going to put on here. You can check that out if you want. Just subscribe. See you next time. Alright, back to my budget build 302. Today we're going to be pulling the harmonic balancer off of it. I will be swapping this timing cover for one that is off an older engine that has a mechanical fuel pump spot and the correct rotation water pump, because this is reverse flow. It's out of a 86 to 90-ish 302. They had a flat belt system, and I will be using V-belt. Well, let's set up this puller. Honestly, this balancer looks like it's seen better days. It has a chunk or two missing. Seems solid, but probably isn't. I might actually have one laying around. And after a lot of digging, I found my socket. Alright, so how I kept the harmonic balancer and the crank from turning while I loosened it. Sure, you could use a fancy impact wrench, but I wedged this piece of wood from this hammer in there. Not too bad. All the bolts that came with it were too long. The stock pulley bolts will work just fine in this scenario. Alright, we're set up. Alright. Well, didn't have any trouble getting that one off of there. Nose of the crank looks in good shape. There isn't any scratches or gouges or anything. And after doing some digging in the parts pile, I did have another harmonic balancer. This one has its rubber intact. Alright, and after a little bit of research, that harmonic balancer I have will work. They're both 50 ounce. I just stuck this one back on there so I won't get dirt down in the block and I won't lose any of my bolts. I'm going to clean up the other balancer and use it. Little by little, one step closer. Thanks for watching.